Death be not proud. This is what goes for the 8 Guards for their participation in the Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971. The 8 Guards, they had been supporting the Mukti Bahini offensives against the Pakistani army for a very long time. The rightful rebellion of the Mukti Bahini against the oppression of the Pakistani military, that was something extremely commendable. But in the month of November, the 8 Guards decided to go full inside the battle. They were operating in the Hilli area, in the Hilli border area. They were a part of the 202nd Mountain Brigade under the command of Brigadier Bhatti. The 202 Brigade was a part of the 20th Mountain Division led by Major General Lachman Singh Lail. Such a GOC had actually won the Veer Chakra in the 1947 war. On the 22nd to 23rd of November, the 8 Guards decided to call it the D-Day. 4 companies of the 8 Guards had decided to infiltrate through the Hilli area and into the defenses of the 4 frontier force of the Pakistani army. The 4 frontier force of the Pakistani army was actually called as the Bawanjas. Yes, this is the same battalion from where Sam Manekshaw had served. Sam Manekshaw had served here. And this was now serving as a part of the Pakistani army. The 4 frontier force was a part of the 205 Infantry Brigade that was led by a fanatic Pakistani Brigadier Tajammal Hussain Malik. The 4 frontier force had turned the Hilli border area, especially the area of Morapara, into a bloodbath. They had prepared this area for a bloodbath. Booby traps were laid here. Minefields were down here. The terrain was unforgiving. Swamp, shallow waters, and a lot of buildings had machine gun posts set up. Like they had planned that if the Indian army ever comes through this place, it's going to be hell for them. The entire area was an impenetrable fortress. But it was the valor of the guardsmen who decided to take them out. The 8 Guards was led by Lieutenant Colonel Shamsher Singh. The 8 Guards had 4 companies. A company led by Major Manjrekar, B company led by Major R. Nath, C company led by Major P.P. Singh, and D company led by Major K.K. Rao. For this massive assault, the 8 Guards received artillery support from the 37 Mountain Regiment, the 38 Medium Regiment, and from the 100 Mountain Regiment. On the first hour of 23rd of November 1971, A and B companies made their first assault on the Pakistani defenses at Morapara in Hilli. They faced extreme resistance. Not only was the terrain unforgiving, but the Pakistani machine guns tore through these 2 rifle companies. It was hell on earth. Major Manjrekar, he led his A company from up front. He lobbed a grenade into a machine gun post himself, taking it out. Unfortunately, he received a machine gun burst himself. Yet this gallant officer decided to do something about the next bunker. Wounded, he moved up, yet he received another machine gun shot, a burst on his head. He died there. Unfortunately, he didn't receive any gallantry award. He died in front of his men, trying to make his pinned down company move up. In his place came 2nd Lieutenant Shamsher Singh Samra. He was commissioned in the 8 Guards, and he decided to do something about the situation. It was turning grim. The machine gun fire was extreme. It was taking down more men, and if men were just bogged down like this, entire A company would collapse. He took a platoon and he started moving up to another machine gun nest. He lobbed a grenade, took it out, but he was wounded. He received a burst again. He received a burst again to take the 2nd machine gun post. And that is when he thought of death, I guess. He must have thought about death. He was wounded twice. He was found later on by his comrades. lying in a trench, dead, with his Sten gun in hand and the grenade in his another hand. The bin was not opened. Meanwhile, the situation for B Company was not very good. Major R. Nath, he was leading B Company, and unfortunately he got wounded from shrapnel. He was evacuated, of course, hence came Captain Bansal. Captain Bansal was a 2IC of B Company. He had 2 JCOs with him, and he led the assault. Unfortunately, one of the JCOs were trying to clear MMG nest when he stepped on a landmine and lost his leg. He eventually passed away, but not before taking down that machine gun nest. Another JCO, Naib Subedar Naeem, was killed in action. The situation was turning grim for B Company as well. Even they got pinned down. Meanwhile, A Company, losing their commanding officer alongside a lot more other officers, was now under the command of 2nd Lieutenant Gupta. He was very young. Yet 2nd Lieutenant Gupta led the survivors of A Company, and he took out 2 more enemy Pakistani bunkers, but unfortunately even he got killed. It was now up to D Company to do something about A and B companies who were still stuck in machine gun fire and the filthy mud. D Company was now led by Major K.K. Rao, and he led his men gallantly again, trying to take out more and more Pakistani bunkers, but before he took out another bunker, even he was wounded. He refused evacuation, of course, because even after his wounds, what he thought of was the fight, the victory, and he continued to lead his men. Unfortunately, even he passed away on the battlefield. D Company did manage to hold some ground, and now the glory was written in the name of Lance Naik Ram Ugra Pandey. He had an RCL gun, and in this assault with his RCL gun, he took out 3 Pakistani bunkers. Unfortunately, even he got killed in action. He was fighting gallantly before he passed away, even till the last second. Captain Vishnu Sharma, the 2IC of D Company, took charge, and he managed to hold more ground, securing more of Morapara. Seeing the heavily defended network of trenches and bunkers of the 4th Frontier Force, the Indian Army finally decided to send in T-55 tanks. The 8 guards needed the most right now. Unfortunately, the T-55 tanks got bogged down in mud. They couldn't just come in time. Hence, a column from C Company was sent on the 24th of November to help out all these 3 companies who were stuck. Eventually, the 4th Frontier Force of the Pakistani Army were also on the verge of being breaking up. Even their defense networks were almost blown up. They had fought gallantly, but they had inflicted massive casualties on the 8 guards. Yet the 8 guards were finally pushing them out. C Company had managed to get a good foothold on Morapara, and alongside them came the PT-76 tanks from the 69 Armored Regiment. These tanks started to break the enemy defenses. Now they had to flee to save their lives. They finally received orders to move out from that area, and finally Morapara was now in Indian hands. Till the 10th of December, the 8th guards held on to Morapara, repelling counterattacks after counterattacks. And in the first Battle of Hilli, the 8th guards had the most casualties. 2nd Lieutenant Shamsher Singh Samra from A Company received the Mahavir Chakra. Unfortunately, A Company Commander Major Manjrekar didn't receive any gallantry award, despite being recommended for. Hilli was a bloodbath for the Indian Army and also for the Pakistani forces. And it was at the cost of blood that these men repelled the Pakistani occupiers from the land of Bangladesh. Sir, you go on to the objective. You wouldn't find a single man who has been shot in the back. This was said to Lieutenant General Jagjit Singh Arora, GOC in Eastern Command by a wounded guardsman after the Battle of Morapara, the first Battle of Hilli. The battalion was tasked to dig in, but after the 3rd of December, they rolled into action again. All this while, they were under constant Pakistani artillery shelling, mortar fire, fire from recoilless rifles, and MMG guns bursting at them from ambush patrols. Yet, the guardsmen decided to hold on despite their casualties, despite taking casualties. The first thing they tried to do is clear out the landmines. The 4 frontier force of the Pakistani army had laid a terrible minefield, a minefield that could even affect the local population even after liberation. It was the task of this gallant NCO, Havildar Ram Bahadur, and his team of pioneers who started clearing out the mines one by one. There were a lot of booby traps as well, and it was clear that the officers or soldiers could step on them or could just fall prey to them. He got onto that task. Meanwhile, the mortar platoon under Subedar Barsati Ram, it kept on firing on the enemy to keep them pinned down. Subedar Haribaksh Singh and Subedar and Havildar Ranjit Singh, the platoon and the sections, they had recoilless rifles with them. They kept the enemy at bay. Havildar Audesh Bahadur, he had the MMG section with him. They kept the enemy pinned down. For their supreme defense, defending the 8 guards and their positions, the 4 of them were given the mentioned in dispatches. It was extremely important to clear the road towards Rangpur and Dinajpur. Hence, the next target for the 8 guards was Dangapara. Dangapara had to be secured by the company under Major Saini. Previously, it was a grueling battle at Morapara, but Dangapara was secured without much casualties. On the telephone, Major General Lachman Singh Lahel, GOC of 20th Mountain Division, contacted the CO of the 8 guards, Lieutenant Colonel Shamsher Singh. This is what he said to him. Shamsher, you carry on, but if you are evicted by the Pakistanis, I will never forgive you. Alongside the 8 guards, joined the 22nd Maratha Light Infantry and the 5 Garhwal Rifles in the last fight to liberate Hilli from the Pakistanis. With them came the 235 Engineering Regiment and the 38 Medium Regiment. Unfortunately, even here, from the stiff resistance of the Pakistanis, all of these units were taking casualties. Pakistani artillery was raining hell on the 8 guards, but it was the sheer guts of Subedar Shiopal Singh who captured Captain Kamran. Captain Kamran was a Pakistani artillery observer, and after the capture of Dangapara, soon fell Chandipur, Hakimpur and Noapara to the 8 guards. With the road towards Rangpur clear, the 8 guards, the 22nd Maratha Light Infantry and the 5 Garhwal Rifles had finally entered Rangpur city. And now it was the time to pen down the number of casualties. Do check how many guardsmen are laying there dead, facing the enemy. It was 68 men killed in action and 153 wounded. Amongst them were 4 officers, 2 JCOs and 64 other ranks. All dead for the liberation of Bangladesh. Major S.K. Chaudhary, he himself had penned down 91 citations. Major S.K. Chaudhary was the battalion's second in command. He himself had lit all the 68 corpses of these dead men. The Pakistanis fled from that area. They fled deeper towards Bogra, Rangpur, but they couldn't stay in Hilli anymore. For their gallantry, the 8 guards received 3 Mahavir Chakras, one given to Lieutenant Colonel Shamsher Singh for such an extraordinary leadership in the entire battle. The second given to 2nd Lieutenant Shamsher Singh Samra, and the third given to Lance Naik Ram Ugra Pandey. The battalion also received 2 Veer Chakras and 1 Sena medal, alongside 4 mentioned in dispatches. The 8 Guards is such a battalion of such a reputation, proudly called as the Triple MVC Pulton. Victory comes to those who strive for it, who goes through pain for it. Victory is never for those people who sit at home waiting for an opportunity to come to them. No, it never happens. You have to be out there. You have to be at hell to push through and earn your reward. This was the case for the 22nd Maratha Light Infantry under the command of Lieutenant Colonel B.R. Swaminathan. The 22 Maratha Light Infantry was a part of the 202 Infantry Brigade under the 20th Mountain Division, the same division that had commanded the 8 Guards. In the Battle of Hilli, it was the 8 Guards that had launched their first assault on the Pakistani defences at Morapara. The 22nd Maratha Light Infantry moved there on the 25th of November evening after the 8 Guards had secured their base, a firm base at Morapara. The 22nd Maratha Light Infantry had 4 companies, A Company being commanded by Major I.M. Sharma, B Company being commanded by Major Datkar, C Company being commanded by Major Chandrasekhar, and D Company commanded by Major Patil, and Captain Suresh Murthy was the regimental medical officer. B Company was tasked to move towards the east, while A Company was tasked to move towards the north. A platoon of B Company under the command of Lieutenant Tombing moved 500 yards ahead of the main defences of B Company to see what's up there. The Pakistanis were lurking in that area. Though they had been defeated, they were still nearby, and they were still waiting for a perfect time to launch a counter-attack. The 22 Maratha Light Infantry was dug in, but it was just 2 companies as of now. C and D companies were not here yet. Though the 25th of November, the entire night was pretty much uneventful, but disaster struck the 22nd Maratha Light Infantry on the dawn of the 26th of November. Just ahead of the defences of B Company was Lieutenant Tombing. He was just 500 yards away, but at the meantime, from B Company, a JCO named as Naib Subedar Ismail, he moved up forward to check what's happening. Unfortunately, he stepped on a landmine and lost his leg. Major Datkar, alongside a platoon of his men, went to retrieve him, and that is when the Pakistanis from somewhere, they had just popped up and they just opened fire on Major Datkar. Unfortunately, to get Naib Subedar Ismail out from that area, Major Datkar was shot dead. He died there, and he received the Veer Chakra posthumously. Soon it was found that a Pakistani 50 caliber machine gun was raining down hell on these men. Hence, it was decided that Naib Subedar Shivram, with a platoon or a section under him, they had an RCL gun. Lieutenant Colonel B.R. Swaminathan himself ordered him to take out that gun. He moved up with his RCL gun, took a position pretty close nearby, and shot that machine gun crew to bits. That entire machine gun crew and that machine gun went up flying sky high. Lieutenant Tombing's position was attacked. He faced the brunt of the assault. Meanwhile, with B Company facing an attack, A Company was not being spared as well. Yet, Major Sharma moved up to get out Naib Subedar Ismail from that heavy area of fire. He was still there. He was still bleeding on that battlefield. And he was finally evacuated under the cover of smoke screen. And for this action, in the fighting, Lieutenant Tombing received the mention in dispatches. Eventually, the Pakistani counterattacks were beaten out. Yes, definitely, of course. They didn't know who they were facing. And C and D companies from the 22 MLI did join up. Finally, Lieutenant Colonel Swaminathan decided to send ambush parties to hunt down any Pakistanis still who might be lurking in that area. A JCO led a search party. I guess it was an ambush party as well. He led that ambush party and he found 10 Pakistani soldiers. They were in hiding. They ambushed the hell out of those Pakistanis and killed all 10 of them. He was Naib Subedar Jamil Ahmed, and he got the Sena Medal for such a wonderful ambush. Unfortunately, a captain from A company was injured. This led to a deficit of officers to command A and B companies. This started to worry the CEO of the 22 Maratha Light Infantry, and they soon received orders to dug in till the 6th of December 1971. They had to stay put. The 22nd Maratha Light Infantry had been sitting in their positions at Morapara since the 26th of November 1971. They had been sitting there till the 6th of December, 3 days after the war officially started. The Marathas were charging to go up against Pakistanis. They were done sitting there. They were bored and they wanted action. As said before, the 22nd Maratha Light Infantry was a part of the 202 Mountain Brigade. It was on the 9th of December when the commander of the 202 Mountain Brigade was being replaced by another brigade commander, Lieutenant Colonel Swaminathan. He had visited the brigade HQ at that time when he got to know about this news. This new brigade commander, after meeting Lieutenant Colonel Swaminathan, expressed his concern about the Americans who were coming. The American 7th Fleet was coming to help Pakistan, and the brigade commander said to the CEO of the 22nd MLI, to finish the operations as soon as possible. Hence, Lieutenant Colonel B.R. Swaminathan presented a plan, a great plan to bash the enemy harder than ever. It was to attack the enemy from the south of Visapara and to take Barachengram and Visapara together. This plan was presented through the use of sand models and other sketches. But the brigade commander was not sure whether this would work out. But Lieutenant Colonel B.R. Swaminathan said that his battalion was prepared. His battalion was prepared, rearing to go, and this plan will have to work out. This impressed the brigade commander and he gave the green signal for the operations to commence. The Marathas were very excited. It was the job of a soldier to see action, and they have been waiting for so long. The first grade of orders for the 22 MLI was seen by Lieutenant Colonel Swaminathan himself. He was briefing his men at 3 p.m. that afternoon when a Pakistani ambush patrol with their MMGs opened fire at him. An NCO nearby actually pulled him down to a ditch that saved his life. Then the men rounded and took them out, but that was the first action after such a long time of sitting and resting. Sitting at Morapara, B company was meant to stay there. The Subedar Major was meant to stay there with them alongside extra ammunition and to tender the casualties. Yes, the 22 MLI was going to take casualties. It was A company who moved out first at 8 p.m. on the 9th of December. Then they were followed by the rest of the companies. But it was D company who had signed up for the victory at Visapara. D company was under the command of Major Patil, and unfortunately both Major Patil and the Subedar had fever at that time. Alongside D company came C company. C company was under the command of Major Chandran. The both were moving up and they were squatting after going 50 yards or 75 yards, checking their sixes, checking all the angles, and then getting up and moving up again. They knew that the enemy was very close to them. They knew that the enemy was sitting. They might have any ambush patrols nearby, and they were checking and moving. But unfortunately, when they moved up to their FUPs, a machine gun crew was carrying an ammunition box, and pretty close to a Pakistani post at Visapara. This gun crew had tripped over a branch and they fell down onto the ground. That ammunition box, when they fell onto the ground, they made a lot of cluttering noise in the night that alerted the Pakistanis. And the Pakistanis opened fire on D company with whatever they had. Artillery, machine guns, small arms, everything was poured down on D company. The assault was tremendous. D Company charged, but they were pinned down. The Pakistanis knew that they were going to be evicted, but why not give up a stronger fight? It was hard. It was very hard. Machine gun fire tore through the soldiers. They took cover. They returned fire, but they were pinned down. Second Lieutenant Nanavati was leading a platoon, and unfortunately he was wounded. He was shot pretty close to the chest, missing his heart. He had been present at the Battle of Morapara. Then rose the gallant NCO Naik Yellukar. A Pakistani officer was firing madly at the charging Marathas, and Naik Yellukar actually went down into his trench and started hunting him. The Pakistanis around were firing at him, but he kept on shooting them, killing them, and he finally shot dead this Pakistani officer. It was later found that it was a Pakistani company commander. His name was Major Abdul Halim. Soon the enemy was evicted out of Visapara. 11 Pakistani soldiers were captured in this battle, alongside important documents that helped the Indian Army a lot in the further operations. Lieutenant Colonel V.R. Swaminathan met these POWs. They were blindfolded, their hands were tied, and the CO asked his men to open their cuffs and remove the blindfolds. The Pakistani POWs were surprised. They didn't expect such a treatment. They were more surprised when the CO offered them tea and smokes. This is when they really were happy at the treatment they received, just as per the Geneva Conventions. Lieutenant Colonel Swaminathan asked them about any enemy activity at Visapara, and they said that the last patrol had left Visapara at evening. They didn't have any other information, but they said that it was the gallant leadership of the Indian Army officers that led to their victory at Visapara. And they also said that if they had such officers in their own battalion, the Indian Army would have never made it inside Bangladesh. They didn't even see their CO ever, the battalion commander ever, whereas an Indian battalion commander was being so nice to them. They were later sorted out and sent to the brigade headquarters. The brigade commander himself congratulated Lieutenant Colonel Swaminathan for this gallant operation. He said that he had made the impossible by infiltrating behind the enemy, behind their lines. Yes, that is the josh of the Indian Army for the liberation of Bangladesh. After this gallant operation, the 22 Maratha Light Infantry was pulled out. They were sent behind the advancing columns on the 12th of December, and it was under the leadership of this gallant commander, Lieutenant Colonel V.R. Swaminathan, and their troops, for which the battalion gained such a reputation. If they had been sitting at Morapara, they wouldn't have received this. If they had been sitting at Hilli doing nothing, just resting and recuperating, they wouldn't have achieved this glory. The 22 MLI did well, really well for the 202 Mountain Brigade. This infiltration behind enemy lines was the idea of the CO. This worked such wonderfully. On the 14th of December, the battalion was moved up to Mithapur and were on their way towards Rangpur. To check out my other documentaries on the Battle of Hilli, check out this one and then this one. And don't forget to check out the links given on these battles on the description box down below. Thank you.